Okay, so I'd like to give a talk about the subject for this evening, which is uh, a little humor. And don't forget, the Buddha himself has had a lot of ironic humor, and so I'm just joining the Sangha. But the title is Samsara Fixable, and you probably know the word samsara. It's just basically the wheel of life, the conditioned life that we're born into, the body that wants to survive, and everything that goes with it. So I want to start with a story. Um, one day, some months ago, when there was still a lot of, as I say, rockets coming over. So one evening, early evening, I was standing outside with a friend, watching the sunset from my house, and it was a kind of a huge sky, which was red. It wasn't spectacular, but it was just a huge sky of red color. And all of a sudden, two rockets, actually interceptors, flew up between me and the sunset, or between us and the sunset, leaving a trail of smoke and then bursting with a bang. And clearly they were somewhere in the Haifa area, whatever, the interceptors between the sunset and myself. And both of us, my friend and myself, had this reaction that the sky couldn't care less. The rockets couldn't damage the sky. It was just an image which was so clear. And it may be a radical view because there's so much pain inside the rockets. They symbolize pain, destruction, blindness, hard-heartedness, lack of caring, lack of, all the whole story. You know it all. But we do need to pay attention to the big picture here. We do need to ask, so we have a choice to be entirely submerged in the human tragedy, or also to step back. So, of course, we have to be engaged with the human tragedy. There's no way we can be in an idealistic world, a kind of abstract world. Of course, the Buddha wasn't there, and great figures like Dalai Lama. We are entirely engaged with the humanness, the human suffering. But at the same time, we have to ask, so is there a role for, if you like, the ocean point of view, or do we just get washed and knocked over by the waves? So what's the ocean point of view? How does that help us? I think we need the wave point of view, and we need to, of course, because we're born in a body and we're human and we feel suffering of others, and we have to engage with that. There's no question. But we can also pay attention to universals here. And it's somewhere very deep inside the spiritual discourse, if you like, a dialogue between a form and emptiness, emptiness being the more universal. I remember a girl in a Sangha here said, I feel so open when I meditate and practice spiritually. I feel I belong to the trees and the olive trees, and I walk, and all of a sudden, I something reminds me of a bang or of a artillery in the hills around, and I feel so small and afraid. And how do I hold the two together? And I think it's a question for all of us, because it doesn't really matter whether we're here or in London or Austria or maybe Hawaii. There's one of you, a message from Hawaii. Maybe Hawaii, we can forget it. But actually, the truth is, no, not even nowhere. We're one planet. We're one community. We can't pretend that it's somewhere else. So, on the human level, there is much work that we can do. And I'm not going to go into this too much because I've already given talks, actually also on Sangha Live, really about this aspect. What can we do to develop the capacities to be with the impossibility of conflict, insecurity, danger, threat, and things collapsing that we are used to call values, human values, kindness. What? So there's a lot we can do. And I'm just going to go through it briefly because I want to go to the more universal aspect after that. And that's more this talk. But just briefly, some reminders. The first thing is don't forget we all need first aid. When things get difficult, we do need to be very clear that we need help. What is it? What kind of conditions feed kusala, which would be wholesomeness? And we can't all do it on our own. We need sangha. We need reminders of kindness. We need especially to be careful about how our attention is hijacked. We need to be careful about the volume of toxic inputs into the consciousness. So we need to be careful of what's coming in. And we need to allow what's coming in to remind us. That's, I would say, first aid. It's helping others. It's going into nature. When the rockets were falling all over here, what helped me was every day I would go in the garden and I'd grow my vegetables and I was there digging the earth and feeding my chickens and when young families went away because it was scary with children, so I would go around and feed the animals, the people that went off abroad from here. So that's the first aid. We have to remember it, a lot of attention to what's coming in, and can we be careful about our attention getting hijacked into unhelpful inputs, the volume of unhelpful inputs. Secondly, we do need a lot of practice of awareness. And that means allowing things to be the way they are, allowing our fear, allowing our despair. But also, the moment we allow our feelings to be authentic, we also allow our joy. We don't say, oh, I'm not allowed to be happy. I hear it quite a lot. I'm not allowed to be happy. Things are so bad. We are allowed to be happy. We can be joyful because we can be honest with what's arising in this human heart and be honest. Allow what's arising to be there. So that's a practice of awareness. It's like witnessing, to be a fair witness. And it's instead of all kinds of constructions. And I would say most of the violence in the world is constructions built on fear. Instead of experiencing the fear and looking at it and allowing it and then it passes, you build out of it story. We have to fight them, they're the enemy, etc. We have to protect. I have to protect my children. That means, endless. It's no end to it. And it's the story. It's not the fear itself. So a lot of that awareness practice we really do need to do, and we can experience coming back home to ourselves. And when we do that, we realize we are big people. When we meet ourselves fully, we see we're big people. We're not small people afraid. And it's important to kind of remember that. And we meet ourselves fully, with all our capacities, with our powers and our kindness and our love and our sympathy and our compassion. We all have it. So, and then one more thing that I mentioned already, meditation does help us actually develop capacities, not just experience the truth of this moment, just as we did in the meditation just now. once we are kind of surrendering and allowing ourselves to be close to what, even if it's painful, in that movement, there is trust. Saying, I am ready to be with this experience. I'm not shutting it down. I'm not covering it over. I'm not running away from it. I'm not pretending it doesn't exist. I'm not in denial. I am ready to meet. That needs trust. It's as if when we get up in the morning and we go out in the street, we need a certain trust to say, yes, okay, I'm ready for this day. It may not be pleasant. We may have unpleasant experiences, but this sense of being ready and allowing things to be the way they are, and I am ready to meet what arises in this day as we go out in the street. What Thich Nhat Hanh calls it, to call things by their true name. So all of that is ways which we can feel more steady with in the middle of difficulty, conflict, arguments, and so on. The Buddha said, by the way, if you get into deep conflict and shouting match, you can say, if you're trying to argue with someone that has very strong views and is very emotional and very angry, forget it. Don't bother. But don't forget the power of equanimity, of steadiness, which is a power. And it's one thing that we can do to help ourselves and others, not to forget what it's like to be steady in the middle of difficulty. It's a powerful message, although it's quiet, but it has an effect on the world. But anyway, I want to go into a little bit into the samsaric, the big picture. The first thing is we really feel it's beyond me. I don't really know what you mean, Stephen, when you say the big picture. I can understand that. But the thing is that the big picture already helps us. For example, when we go to nature and we walk in the forest or we walk in the park or we sit under a tree, where is the sense of well-being? It comes from belonging because we are there with nature. We are nature, sitting with nature. That sense of belonging is the big picture. It's us and nature being together as one. Even a little bit. It's what makes us feel good in nature without any concept. Our caring heart, the care that we feel, we love goodness at everyone's heart. It's called otapa in the tradition. We all have a heart that loves goodness. That's already the big picture. It's manifest in many, many different ways. Caring. We care for others because in a way we are them. I know it's not so easy. When we look at pictures of what's going on these days, and it's too much. But on the other hand, but we feel the pain of others because we are them. We are with them. And that's our big heart, a heart of compassion. And of course, we feel limits. We feel limit to our compassion because we can't really, we feel I can be compassionate. So far, I can't be compassionate to, I don't know what, Netanyahu. I can be compassionate to them, but not, we can always feel limits. We do feel limits because we're human beings. And we feel pressure to fix things and pressure to undo things and pressure to struggle against difficulty and pain and despair. And these things are our humanness, and there are our limits. But even that, we need to kind of see there our human mind, the pressure to fix things, to control things is itself painful. I'm reminded of the biblical book of Job. It's a very difficult book. And it's an amazing book. It's a great Dharma book, the book of Job, because pages after pages of pages with amazing metaphors and descriptions. Job suffered in an unexpected way. It just landed on him, immense suffering. And he just couldn't understand why. And he all the time wanted an answer. Why am I suffering? I'm a good person. All my life I've been giving. I'm ethical. I've been giving to others. Why do I suffer? What's going on? What's the reason? And all the people around him, the community, tried to give him explanations. And he wasn't satisfied. He said, no, it's not good enough, these explanations, that you in your previous life were like this, or because some things you did, you didn't know, etc., etc. He said, no, I don't accept any of that. These are explanations from the mind, and they don't feel right. And in the end, by persistent, he said, I only want to hear hear God, if you like, that ultimate voice telling me why I'm suffering. And in the end, he did, by persistence. It's like a really good meditator and didn't stop. Persistence. He actually heard the voice of God in this book. And it's really interesting because God didn't say anything about suffering and didn't give any explanation. And what happened was nothing to do with the human mind whatsoever. The voice of God was a poetic, revealing nature of things, the truth of things. Just look at the deer. Just look at the whales in the sea. Just look at the sky and the sunset. Just look at nature that you don't understand, and you didn't do it. And it's just let go into what is. And that is the answer. There isn't any other answer. And when he got that, which is beyond the mind and beyond human interest and beyond control and beyond explanation, when he got that, which is, as I say, beyond the mind, everything was sorted out. So we have illusion that if we fabricate enough, if we construct explanations, if we can fix, we can control things, we can fix things. It's the end of the mess. And one very obvious place to think about this is a view of karma. And we can start there, actually, because karma is a huge issue, but it's certainly some test of how we look at things beyond us, called fate. And it doesn't allow us to have any small explanation. It doesn't. Karma doesn't fit any rational, logical explanations at all. The Bhagavad Gita is perhaps the best example of this, where Arjuna said, just like today, how can I fight a war against my family? What happened? I can't do it. And he threw down his weapons and sort of collapsed. And Krishna, with the voice of the beyond, said, shut up. Stop being so full of yourself, basically. Karma is not in your hands. You didn't produce this. You can't say it should be other than that. It's very, very painful to you, but you can't say it should be other than that. So the Buddha took this to a much more subtle place. The Buddha, huge wisdom there. He said, you cannot be dualistic about karma and fate. Because if you, on the one hand, say it's fate, it's what's happened, we just have to put up with it, it leads to nihilism. It leads to determinism. But if you say, I'm in control, it leads to an absurd hubris and chaos. And neither of them are helpful. What's helpful is a deep understanding of what Paticca Samuppada, the dynamic nature of this moment. This moment is the result of millions of conditions, And you really have to allow that to be the basis of your actions in life. And there's a beautiful Tibetan story like this about two guys hanging out in the market, and one got hit by a stick, and he started to shout at the stick. And his friend said, "You're crazy, you're shouting at a stick." And he said, "Oh, yes, yes, that isn't very clever." So he started to shout at that arm that holds the stick. And his friend said, "Why are you shouting at an arm? Shout at the man whose arm it is. It's not the arm's fault." So his friend said, "Oh, yes, you're right, you're right." Started to shout at the man. And his friend said, "Wait a minute, you're shouting at the man, but you don't know what made the man hit you with a stick. It can be he had a hard time. It maybe he hasn't had breakfast. Maybe you don't know anything. So you have to shout at the conditions that made the man hit you with a stick." And his friend said, "Yes, you're right." And he started to shout at the conditions. And he said, "Wait a minute, the conditions of the whole universe. How can I shout at everything?" And that's the point. I think we have to allow that this moment, right now, it's 8 o'clock, is, your time. All of us together, we're listening to each other. We have a presence. This moment, it takes the whole universe to make this moment what it is. We can't say we know how this moment is constructed. Yes, we can say, "I put my finger on the button of the computer." Sure. But a million things that create this moment and this finger and this intention and, and Sangha Live and everything else. And so understanding that everything is free and dynamic, and it gives us hope because we are part, our intention is part of the conditions. It means nothing is lost because every word we say goes out into the world and changes something. Nothing is lost. The universe is just a web of interacting causes and conditions that make this moment what it is. I had a very personal, you could say tragic, but also very, very moving experience. A few months ago, an old friend of mine, who was really a kind of a pratyeka Buddha, you call it, like a kind of a solitary Buddha living in the village here, 82 years old. And I've been one of my closest friends for 30, 40 years. And one day he came running into the class that I was teaching and said, "I've discovered something really amazing by watching the fire. I see that the fire told me that everything in the world is constantly changing its shape. There's nothing that is fixed. The whole universe, the whole of life is just a shape-changing, dynamic, changing shape." And that the dramatic thing, 4 days after he said that, there was a fire in his house that burnt his house and burnt him as well. And he died from the fire. And it was really shocking. 4 days after that, it's as if the fire changed his shape as well. He was actually before that very ready to die himself. And he said, even before that experience, if I die, I'll just be changing my shape. It just goes back to where it came from, my body. So he was a wise, dear friend of mine, but it was a dramatic story. And it reminds us that everything is changing its shape and we need to kind of adjust to that. And it helps us to face an incredibly difficult situation, such as what's happening now in Gaza, with eyes that are a little bit bigger, that we're not in charge of the situation, we're not in control. And it does help us to go to compassion rather than to despair and anger and 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 the need to control things. And instead of that, it takes us somewhere else because we see that nothing is lost. So I can go out into my life and I'll help in one thing or another without measuring what's better, what will help the people in Gaza, what will not. I will do my best to manifest my good heart and help suffering wherever I can. wherever we can. I would say our heart says, be available wherever we can offer ourselves to the world. But it's this big sense that that's what I can do rather than a sense that I have to fix this. I know it's so painful to look at situations such as in Gaza, but it, if we look at it as being, we're not in control of this, like the book of Job. So what is it that can help us have that, develop that kind of really open, compassionate, and heartful way of living? It's a way of life. And the Buddha said that it's yoniso manasikaram. Basically, it's a more feminine quality of awareness. It's a caring awareness, which is what we're doing in the meditation. It's a wise heart. It's not an analytic mind. It's not measuring. It's a heartful. It's in the word chitta, which you probably know, bodhicitta, or chitta is a mind heart in the Pali. So it's the heart is in it. And yoniso manasikaram is a more kind of a soft, caring awareness. It's awareness that connects us. It's an awareness that spreads out into the world. It's an awareness that's effective in the world because it's like a mothering awareness. And the Buddha said that's how, or at least the tradition says, that the Buddha reached awakening because of using or because of development of yoniso manasikaram, which is not kind of a masculine analytic wisdom, but more of a caring wisdom. So it does go with quite a lot of letting go. If you like, the view of the ocean says, the waves are painful, but I don't have a view of the way things should be. I don't have a view that things should be like that. I don't measure that things should be like that. You can't get freedom. You can't get happiness. You can just allow freedom and happiness. You can allow it's not something you can grab and grasp and obtain and measure. So all of that is a little bit beyond a kind of ordinary conceptual mind. And in a way, caring for ourselves and the other and caring for people we don't even know and being effective in the world asks us to be beyond the ordinary mind of measuring and controlling and trying to fix. But it will just happen by itself. Our caring heart will go out in the world and will make change. We develop our caring heart and we then just donate it. It's like dana. We just develop our caring heart and we donate it to the world as dana. That's all we can do. But you can see somewhere that if we take the big picture, it helps us to do that constantly without burnout. Well, I'm gone to demonstrations. So many people in here. There's such a strong voice, by the way, against all of this madness here and against the violence and against the cruelty. But people are exhausted. They go to demonstrations. They've been going years, even before the current war, and not much changes. And I think you can kind of get to see that we're not alone in that. You go on the streets of London and you try and kind of demonstrate against all the kind of hardness in the world, and not much changes. But we have to keep going from that place of developing our qualities of caring and a big compassionate heart and donating it out there. And it's not struggling against life. It's being right in life. And it's not making a theory that life is a problem. Life is not a problem. Life is life. It's actually perfect. It's perfect with us or without us. We were talking about it before. Life is life. But it really helps us to see more carefully, what are the seeds that we sow? What is the kind of waves that we make in the world? So a final sentence. I love this quote from the Tibetan teacher, Padmasambhava, who said, keep your vision as wide as the sky, but sieve your actions, sieve, like in a sieve, sieve your actions like sieving fine flour. And it's kind of beautiful quote because what I'm talking about, samsara, is not fixable. It's painful to a human person and to other beings and sentient beings that want to survive. It's not fixable. It's been, the Buddha said it's been like that for thousands and thousands of, from the beginning of time, samsara has been like that. And from the beginning of time, nirvana has been like that. It's not something that came yesterday. And so from that place, we can't struggle against it. We can just act from the biggest place that we can. And we keep our vision as wide as the sky and then go out in the street and do what we can, small actions that make karmic waves in the world. We can cry, of course, when we feel the pain of ourselves and others. We can laugh when we feel the joy because it's still there. We allow both, and we develop the powers that we can of Dharma, of a deeper truth of things. One small little story, again, not about me, but it's been very important in the peace work that we've been doing for years with Palestinians and Israelis out here. There was a priest in America in the Vietnam War who was sitting outside the Pentagon every night with a candle. He's called A.K. Must. And it's such a beautiful story. It's influencing me until today. So he sits in a vigil all night outside the Pentagon. And people come to him and say, are you crazy? You're sitting here all night. You think one person, you with a candle, can change the whole of the Pentagon, the whole of the industrial military complex of America? You think you can change them like that? He said, no, you don't understand. I'm not sitting here with a candle so that I can change them. I'm sitting here all night with a candle so they don't change me.